Hey everyone, what's up and welcome back to my channel. It's Josh, and today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new Tissot Seastar 1000 Powermatic 80. As you all know, I don't really do watch reviews, and I don't really consider myself to be any kind of authority on watches, but when I was looking around online and thinking about picking this guy up, there really weren't any reviews, and it's weird because this is brand new for 2018. It was released or debuted at the Bezel World Fair back in March and has now hit the streets, so to speak. And it's interesting because there aren't too many reviews, written reviews online or kind of really hands-on videos. So that's what I wanted to do today because it's a really phenomenal watch, and I think one that a lot of people are going to be looking at picking up or are currently looking at picking up quite soon. So here's hoping that this video can help answer some questions or maybe, clear up some things, give you a better look at the watch before you go out and buy. So it's no secret that I'm a huge fan of Tissot. I've got a number of watches from them. I think that they represent maybe the best value, in terms of dollar to watch that you get for your money, especially with Swiss watches. And I actually have here the previous generation Seastar 1000 Powermatic 80. I bought this about 5 years ago now. It was right after they put the ceramic bezel on it, which sort of for me was like the tipping point, and I said at that point I was like, yeah, I gotta have that. I love this watch. It's gone around the world with me more times than I can count. Anytime that I need a watch, that can do aquatic activities, so swimming, snorkeling, diving, just going to the beach, this is my go-to guy. He has survived getting stuck with salt and sand and every kind of debris you can imagine from the ocean. And look at it. I mean, it's basically, there are scuffs and scratches on the edges and whatnot, but all in all, I think it's in really great shape. I had it serviced for the first time about a year and a half ago. It's not something I wear on an everyday basis, but for its purposes, it served me really, really well. I'm really, really happy with the quality, and I think that this will be in my collection for many years to come. So, because I had this, the previous generation Seastar, and I saw the new one, when it was released at Bezel World, I thought it would be interesting to pick this guy up for a couple of reasons that we'll get into right here in the video. So, one thing I want to talk about, though, with this guy, the downsides of it. It was never a watch that I thought could be worn on a daily basis. So, when people would ask me, is it a great deal? Is it, if I'm looking for like that kind of, the diver's watch to wear everywhere, because, diver's watches to many people kind of fit in with every ensemble, every kind of attire. It's a very casual watch, but at the same time, they're classic and they're kind of iconic and they're very elegant in their own way. So, you can wear it in a business casual setting and, still look great. So, when people would ask me, though, about this guy, I would normally, I always said that it's a great watch. It's a great diver's watch. It meets all the criteria, and it meets that crucial, 1,000 feet. It's more of a psychological number because 90% of these are never going to see 1,000 feet deep in the ocean. But, at the same time, with this one, the design was a little bit cartoony. The hands are kind of exaggerated. The numbers are, kind of the big block letters, big block numbers. And while I'm not opposed to that, for me, this watch has always been, for sporting purposes, where, I'm not trying to look any, really elegant or really classic or anything like that. So, for the same reason, I put it on a NATO strap, and, it's a very sporty looking watch, and so that's sort of the environment and types of wear that it gets, or that I put it through. With the new one, though, so let's jump in and just start talking about this guy, because there's a lot that I want to talk about with this watch. Clearly you can see, looking at these two side by side, they've really scaled back on that kind of exaggerated, sporty looking design. You see it here on the face, you can see it on the bezel. It doesn't have these big kind of like oversized knurls or indentations here on the bezel. The hands are a lot more sleek. The numerals and indices, have gone back to the very traditional diver with the squares, circles, and triangles. So on one hand, this is a very different watch from this guy, but you know, if you look at the rest of the case without the dial involved, it is in many ways, you know, kind of just an evolution of the previous Seastar. It's got the same kind of cutaway on the side, very same crown with the kind of the protectors on it. Both are screw-down crowns and screw-down casebacks. The one interesting thing to note about the new one is that it doesn't have the helium escapement valve, and you can see that there. Doesn't have that, and I think that that's partly how they brought the price down on this, and again, we'll talk about that further on in the video. To me, you know, I really don't think that's a big deal, because let's just be real. How many people, again, are going to take this watch to 1,000 feet in the ocean where you may, you know, worry about helium building up inside the case? And, you know, just in reality, watches are built so well now that it's really, really hard for any kind of, you know, gas to kind of build up in there and need to have a valve to escape through. So anyway, let's take a look at the design of this watch. I really like it. You know, when this was first released at Bezel World, and you know, they published the press pictures of it, I think that there were some people who were kind of like, you know, giving it some shit about looking, you know, like every other watch. And you know, let's just be real here, it does look very much like every other watch. You know, it looks like it definitely looks like a Rolex Submariner. Some of the other colorways definitely remind me of some of the Oris divers, in particular the Oris 65. There's a blue and black version of this that really does look like the Oris 65. It also looks like definitely a lot of the Tudor watches, like the Black Bay. And of course, you know, it sort of looks like the Omega Seamaster Professional as well. I don't think that that's a bad thing. You know, to me, this watch is... It's not like it's competing with them. You know, when you look at the price point, this is a good $1,000 cheaper than even the cheapest Oris. And, you know, this is about like a tenth of the price of a Submariner. To me, it's not like they're competing in the same class. You know, this is definitely not at that level. But I think what they've done by offering a watch that's got the classic kind of look of a diver, the classic hallmarks, combined with a really great movement, sapphire crystal, exhibition caseback, and that, you know, 1,000 feet of water resistance, pressure resistance, I think that it was a good call on their part, and I'm gonna guess that because, again, the design isn't so polarizing like that one, that they'll end up selling a lot more of these. So let's dive into this. I'm gonna put the press picture, or, you know, the beauty shot, the product photo, on the other side of the screen here, and I want to talk about that a little bit because I was sort of surprised when I took it out of the box, you know, when I got it in the mail, because the product photos don't really do it justice, in my opinion. You know, if we look at these side by side, two of the things that sort of turned me off in the beginning and were sort of, you know, I ordered it, but I thought to myself, if it looks like that photo, I'm going to return it. The first one was this bezel. Now, they kept the ceramic bezel, which is really, really nice, but unlike the previous Seastar, this one, as you can see, has, you know, an engraved ceramic bezel. So the numbers are sort of a little bit more visible at every angle. You know, and while the surface is reflective, the engraving is not. On the new one, they've gone with a completely coated bezel. But one thing that stood out to me in the product photos was really how big these numbers are. They looked huge. And of course, in the product photo, they're silver. And they are silver here too, but as you can see, as we move the watch around, you know, they're not all that visible. They don't have that much presence, you know, in average light and average, you know, situations, the way that they look like they do in that product photo. So for me, you know, I was really worried about how big they were. The bezel looks really oversized in the product photo, and it really doesn't look that bad in real life. The second thing that I wanted to note is the dial itself. So I was just, you know, sitting in my living room opening the box, and I didn't have any like direct light source, so, you know, anything like, you know, daylight or indoor light or anything like that. And in some lighting situations, in fact, like right here when we're looking at it now, the dial almost looks matte. You know, you don't see that sunray finish immediately. You kind of have to turn it towards the light, and then you can kind of see it there. And so I think what they've done here is really, really nice. You know, you get a little bit of sheen off that dial in most lighting situations, but it's nothing that detracts from the legibility of the watch. While we've got that product photo up, the other thing I want to say about this watch is it definitely is larger than it looks. So this is not a huge watch. You know, this is about 43 millimeters, which I think the old one was too, just about 43 millimeters. So it's not huge, but for me, kind of the max size I can wear on my wrist is about 42 to 43 millimeters. And then moving really quickly, I'll show you the back here. So if you are familiar at all with the Powermatic 80 movement that Tissot kind of developed with ETA, which is also, you know, in-house with the Swatch Group. In years past, or in watches past, the rotor was, you know, I think it was just powder-coated black. So, you know, this whole piece was black. To me, that made it look a little bit cheap, and it looks like they're moving back towards just doing, you know, a metal rotor, brushed metal rotor with kind of like that Tissot design in there. And I'll put a better picture because my phone doesn't want to focus. But what I think, you know, just that simple change to aluminum, or, you know, metal to a metal rotor, has really made the watch look a lot more premium. And then you can see here on the back, the case back is a little bit decorated. You know, they've got kind of like, you know, probably laser etched lines here between the indentations to unscrew the case back. I don't know. You know, I think that now this is a really nice looking exhibition case. I know that, you know, some people who are purists aren't fans of the exhibition case backs on diver watches. To me, if you can hit 1,000, you know, if you can hit that 300 meter mark and have an exhibition case back, then all the more power to you. One other thing to note on the dial, the indices are quite small on here, you know, in relation to the overall size of the watch. I don't know what the rhyme or reason for that was, but I will say, you know, while I don't think it affects the design and the usability of the watch, if you do plan to take this diving, or if lume is a big concern to you, the one thing I will say about this watch in particular is, and it could be, you know, this could be my particular sample of this watch, my particular, you know, unit, but the lume on the hands is really great, so you can easily see what time it is. But in relation to the hands, it could be because, you know, the indices are so small, or it could just be because the lume isn't as great on the indices. They come out really dark in comparison to the hands, and in comparison even to the original, not original, but the previous Seastar. Again, though, like if we look at that, like you see how much bigger the indices are on the older one versus the newer one. It could just be that, you know, the lume is more concentrated, or maybe there's a thicker coating of it on, you know, on these indices because they're larger and not on this one. I don't think that it's a big deal for this watch for most people because, again, most people are not going to be taking this to depths where you need lume. But it is something to consider if you are looking for that cheap diver, you know, sort of the way that I use that one. Now, for the rest of us, I think, again, you know, the classic design of this is just so nice. I think it really, really punches above its price point. And so for most people, I think that this is going to be a great watch. You know, maybe you're moving up from a Seiko diver. Maybe you're looking at your first Swiss watch. Maybe you're looking at your first Swiss diver, you know, or something like that. And you don't want to invest in something like an Oris or a Tudor or even a Longines. I think that this is a great choice. And I think, you know, the other thing is, even as you progress, or if you have, you know, more expensive, like, you know, Omegas or Rolexes in your collection, these watches are great because, you know, again, Tissot hits that really nice kind of money to, you know, quality ratio that you get. And I think that what that means for a lot of people, especially like, you know, with my older Seastar, is that I can take, you know, a Seastar out, not really worry if I'm going to get it, you know, banged up, scratched, broken, or anything like that. You know, I'd much rather thrash a, $700 watch than, you know, a $4,000 Omega or something like that. So I think there's something for everyone in this watch in terms of what it offers, you know, again, from price, quality, features. And I really do think that anybody who picks it up is going to be really happy with it. With that being said, though, I think I would like to see maybe, you know, a second generation revision of this. I really do prefer the bezel from the original, not the original, my older Seastar. I wish that they had just taken this bezel and, you know, pasted it right on this watch. But I can understand why they didn't, because, you know, if they put this bezel on this watch with the way that this one is marked, that would really look like a Rolex Submariner, you know, when you combine the bezel with this face. So I can understand not doing that. But, you know, there are a couple of things. I would like to see them refine the bezel a little bit more. I think that the numbers they're still quite large. You know, it's not a deal breaker by any means, but I would like to see, you know, maybe something engraved, or maybe just taking those numbers down a notch. And then the other thing too, you know, on the knurling on the bezel itself is much improved, or much more refined over, you know, the older Seastar. But I would like to see it be maybe a little bit smoother, maybe a little bit more polished. You know, this definitely makes for an easy grip as you turn the bezel, and that clicking, I don't know if you can hear it. That's definitely a nice bezel to turn, and it feels very solid. You know, the ceramic gives it a nice weight, definitely. I don't know, I kind of would like to see more of that bottle cap, you know, type bezel or knurling on this bezel. So because we're going long, I'll just jump right into pricing, and that's sort of where this watch, this particular Seastar, gets really interesting. So I bought my Seastar again many years ago in Europe when I was there, and you know, from some, you know, Swatch boutique. But I want to say that the retail price on this guy when it came out in the US, so, you know, assuming, you know, stainless steel bracelet and everything, I think was like $995. It was just around $1,000, and it was right below it, so it was kind of a psychological, you know, you're still paying under $1,000 for a really great Swiss-made, you know, 1,000 feet rated diver watch. Now, what's interesting about this guy for 2018 is that this is now $725 retail. So imagine, you know, on sale on the gray market, whatever you want to, you know, however you choose to go, typically you can find these for less. Again, you know, I've talked about gray market in other videos. I'm not going to recommend that anybody go gray market, but, you know, you do you. And if you choose to go that way, I've seen it for as low as like $425, I think, from, you know, like watchesoftheworldonline.com or whatever. I bought mine from Bloomingdale's during their, it was like their, you know, Thanksgiving in July, Black Friday in July sale thing. And they were doing 25% off basically everything, you know, jewelry and watches included. So I got mine for 25% off, $725, and I want to say that, you know, with tax and everything, it came to just under $550, like $543, which again, for this, yeah, that's a no-brainer any day of the week. Even for $725 though, I think that this is a really great value for your money. You know, again, because you look at you know, the Tudors and the Omegas and the Rolexes, not to say that we're comparing those, but, you know, especially again for somebody who maybe is looking at their first Swiss diver, maybe really just wants that psychological mark of my watch can go down to 1,000 feet, because really that's a big selling point of this watch. You know, a lot of the Seikos that are around, you know, that you can also get for $500 typically go to 200 meters. Now, the other interesting thing to talk about with this watch is sort of its relation to the other divers in the Swatch family, notably the Longines Hydro Conquest, and I'll put a picture in the video here for us to talk about. So these are the two watches together. This is the Tissot, you know, the Seastar, and then on the right is the Hydro Conquest. The Hydro Conquest also just got updated for 2018, released or debuted at Bezel World. I don't think, at least at the time of this video, I haven't seen pricing on that one. The current Hydro Conquest that I think that replaces goes for about $1,300 or $1,400, you know, with tax. And you know, before, when this Seastar was, you know, about $1,000, let's say, there wasn't a huge price gap, you know, between the Tissot and the Longines. And I think part of it had to do with this was definitely more sporting looking watch, and that Longines was definitely more of a, you know, the classic diver. it was really interesting though, because this Seastar had the ceramic bezel long before the Hydro Conquest, and the Hydro Conquest actually just got that ceramic bezel for 2018. But now that this is $725, and then the Longines, let's assume it's about $1,400, there's now a really nice price gap between those two. So I think what they're doing, in terms of pricing strategy, if I had to guess, I don't know, but if I had to guess, I would say that making the Tissot $725 and then making the Longines something around $1,400, there's not going to be so much, should I, just spend the extra money, because now there's a clear-cut gap between, the Tissot and the Longines. But, all in all, I think that this is a really great watch. I was sort of on the fence about returning it because I wasn't sure if it had, a place in my collection, if there was something that, it's definitely not going to replace that guy, but at the same time, I've got an Omega Diver, my Seamaster that I wear on a daily basis. So, I wasn't really sure if it had a place, and I don't buy watches just to buy watches. But I think that this is a really great piece. I'm really glad I got it. Again, for that price point, just duh, why wouldn't you buy it? So that's about it, guys. I hope that this was helpful to you if you are looking at this watch, or if you were maybe just curious about it. I'm more than happy to answer any questions, if you leave them down in the comments. I always say, please feel free to message me on Instagram. Again, I really do hope that this was helpful. I will do a follow-up version after I've had this for a couple of months and have worn it out a bit. Maybe I'll take this diving or swimming with me this weekend. But that's about it. Thanks so much for watching, and I will talk to you soon, and I hope everybody has a great weekend ahead.